Well, hello again, it's Steve. Thank you very much for all those people that have been watching my videos. I was very surprised 24 hours after the first video to find that 65 people had watched it, so I'm thankful for that. It has gone up quite a bit, so I'll continue if that's okay, but please make sure that you subscribe, because otherwise I doubt if it's going to be promoted to you. Anyway, I had a comment on one of the videos. It says, tampering with evidence is quite normal for the police. Tell us about the people you gave a kicking to or bribes you took. I'm assuming that this is supposed to be humorous, but I will tell you about a couple of things. I was offered a bribe once, and I'll talk about that in another video. I find it quite incredible that over the years as a police officer there were scuffles and fights. I did have all my teeth knocked out in one particular case, and I'm going to tell you about that now actually. And we have, obviously, our main weapon of defence was the humble truncheon. I mean, this is quite interesting piece of equipment actually. It's really lightweight. I mean, you can't do anything with it. You can't do any real damage with this thing, but it was made like that so that you didn't kill anybody. And they did train you how to use it, how to wield it, and where to hit people. And you were not allowed to hit people on the head, full stop. So you were basically confined to hitting them around the body, or the legs, or the hands, you know. So I don't know, it served its purpose. I mean, they didn't even want people to know that we carried these things. There was a pocket in the trousers that went down your right leg, inside the trousers, so that you could put it inside. Nobody'd know that you were carrying a truncheon, and the strap would hang out of the pocket so that you could get quick access to it. This is, I think, the third one that I had. The second one broke across someone's head, and I'm going to tell you about that now. And apart from hammering in a few nails and, you know, a few threats, I didn't really have to use my truncheon at all. But I'm going to tell you this story. I was going to do this a little bit later on, but because of the comments, I think I'll mention it to you. First thing is this. Never took a bribe. Never ever took a bribe in my life. In fact, in those days, we weren't allowed to actually accept gifts, which is quite surprising, because now in 2024, it's the 8th of November, there's a lot of hoo-ha about people in positions of power accepting gifts. Well, you know, people don't give gifts freely. They don't go, hey, I like you, here's a gift, here's my £1 million mansion for you to use, and here's a suit of £1,000, whatever it was. It was very strict in the police. You were not allowed to take gifts. Simple. You did the job because that's what you wanted to do. You didn't do it for a reward, certainly not in the early days anyway, because the wages were pretty poor. So I do find it incredible that now people accept gifts and go, oh yes, you know, they don't expect to gain anything from me. Yeah, right. So I distinctly remember when I was the village policeman for a couple of years, which I thoroughly enjoyed. People knew you weren't allowed to accept gifts, and so, you know, you'd wake up in the morning, open your front door, and there'd be a brace of pheasants there and a, you know, bottle of wine or something. But they all had to be handed in. You didn't dare keep them, you know, in case there were allegations at a later stage that you were under undue influence. You know. So, as far as bribes was concerned, excuse me, I only had one bribe, which I didn't take, and I reported. But I'll talk about that in another video. That's okay. I'm here in my office, by the way, which is a bit of a mess, full of memorabilia, my toys, which I've been collecting ever since I was a kid, and take up a fair bit of space in the loft, which I'll be going through from time to time. But anyway, police story. I went from a very busy police station in North Kent. After about 5 years or so, I moved to a very quiet place in Kent, in fact, at Cranbrook. And it was a different world altogether. At night, there were 2 policemen on duty in the main for the whole of the rural area, which was Cranbrook, Sissinghurst, all of the rural villages outside Tunbridge Wells. There were just 2 officers on duty at night, and so it was quite interesting in terms of what you had to deal with. So, to cut a very long story short, and getting on to how this was cracked across somebody's head, the chemists in Hawkhurst had been burgled quite a few times, and drugs were taken. And as a result, they installed a silent alarm. So I was on duty with a guy called Lyndon, and we were having a cup of tea in Cranbrook Nick. It was quiet. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, something like that. We're having a coffee, cup of tea, and the silent alarm went off at the chemist in Hawkhurst. So we made it in about 10 minutes. I mean, we literally blue lighted it, blues and twos, through the country lanes, and we got there very, very quickly, turned the 2 tones and blues off before we got there, and pulled up outside the chemist. And sure enough, the chemist window, the door, which was glass, it seems ridiculous now, but it was, had been smashed. It was pitch black, there were no lights on, and we could hear noises inside. So we very, very carefully climbed in. I went first. Lyndon was behind me. It was absolutely pitch black, truncheon to the ready, and in we went. And we could hear noises. They were trying to break into the drugs cabinet. So there were aisles in this chemist with products, and so we moved up this aisle, and there was just enough light to see what was going on, but very little. And the recollection I have was, in a brief second, I saw a tire lever, crowbar, glinting in the moonlight as it made its way towards my head at vast speed and caught me just there, right in the face. And this guy was one of 3, and he was obviously hiding at the end of a run. And as I moved forward, swung it, caught me straight in the face. And I probably did feel pain, but the adrenaline kicked straight in, and I was absolutely fuming. I was so angry that he'd done this, and I knew it had caused damage because I could feel my mouth had filled up with blood. So he then came into full view, and I whacked him firstly across the body, and it had absolutely no effect at all. And then he hit me again with the iron bar. At which point, I'd been doing a bit of martial arts training then anyway, so I knew I had to close the gap. So I closed the gap and got him in a sort of bit of a bear hug, if you like. And we started rolling around on the floor. The truncheon, obviously, had fallen off out of my hand, and was sort of hanging on by its strap. So we rolled around on the floor, and I was punching him, he was punching me, now, Lyndon couldn't see what was going on because it was so dark. He was behind me, and so we were scuffling, rolling around on the floor. And all I remember, as I was on top and was just sort of laying into this guy, Lyndon grabbed me by the collar and went, "Let go of my mate," and some other words, with his fist back like this. I went, "Lyndon, it's me." Anyway, at that particular point, number 2 came round the corner, and kicked Lyndon straight between the legs, and he was literally out. He told me afterwards it was excruciating pain and he couldn't have done anything. So he was out of the picture. The third guy was still trying to get the drugs out, as it turns out. But this guy that I was wrestling with, I wasn't going to let go, and I was absolutely mad as you can possibly be. So we rolled around. Now I couldn't see this guy, but I thought he must be enormous. He's so strong. I couldn't even hold him in a lock, and I managed to get the truncheon somehow or other round his neck like this, and I'm pulling it into my ribs like this, and he still was struggling. And I later found out I broke two ribs, and I think that was me pulling his head against my ribs. So yeah, 2 broken ribs didn't really help. Anyway, we had this rough and tumbles, and lo and behold, he was so strong, he got out of my grip and he was running towards the door. And without a word of a lie, I took the truncheon and I ran up behind him and I hit him as hard as I possibly could across the back of the head. Now, how it didn't kill him, I just don't know. The truncheon split in two. The guy just went down on one knee and went, like this. And then he started to get up again. And we started to have our rough and tumbles yet again. We were near the front door, and the front door on the inside had a handle, a sort of curved handle, pull thing. And I always remember he was getting away. I managed to get my handcuffs on one arm, but I couldn't get his arms together. He was that strong. It just would not go. But I did manage to put the other end of the handcuffs through this loop of this door. And, that stopped him to a degree. At that point, the other guys just ran off. They ran straight past me. I was on the floor. I had a crack across the back of my head, which was bleeding profusely. My teeth had all gone. And my arm, this one, my arm, where we'd been rolling round in the glass, it was shards stuck in my arm. I'm not looking for sympathy, it was a long time ago. And so the others ran off. Lyndon recovered eventually, and the blue lights turned up. They were half an hour away from Tunbridge Wells, but they got there as quickly as they could. And all the lights went on, and it was a scene of absolute devastation, because the chemist had been wrecked. There were products all over the floor, nappies, gels and all sorts of things where we'd been rolling around. It was a complete mess. And this guy he was conscious, but he wasn't on this planet. And it turns out he was a drug addict, and he was on a trip. And he needed to feed his habit, and he didn't feel pain. When you're on drugs and things, you don't feel things. So, and his strength was immense. He was only a little guy. I can't believe how small he was. He was smaller than me. And yet he was strong as an ox under the influence of drugs. So anyway, the long and the short of it is the cavalry arrived, and everyone was going, "Oh my goodness, look at the state of you. These teeth are all gone." And to this day, it's cost me a fortune, because the police paid for these all to be crowned, and I've got bits of wire going across the roof of my mouth to make it work, because some of them just disappeared completely. But after time after time, they fall out, and the last lot was two or 3 years ago. It cost me $3,000, I think, to have just 2 of them as implants. But anyway, it was a complete mess. And so that's how I broke my truncheon, which was in 2 pieces, literally in the middle, across this guy's head. He did have, I think it was 27 stitches. I had a few stitches and a few bruises and what have you, and he did go down for it. He never did implicate his 2 accomplices. And I don't think the chemist was at all impressed when they turned up the next day to see the mess that had transpired. But that's one of the things, you have to deal with the violence, and we will get officer training. It was very basic, which is why most of us in those days, in our 20s, used to go to martial arts, karate, Aikido, not so much Krav Maga or Kung Fu, but we all did some extra training because there were always going to be circumstances when you needed it, and there were many, and I will be telling you about those. So that was the Hawkhurst Chemist truncheon debacle. And there are all sorts of things, from the top brass. Oh, there'd be commendations and this, that, and the other. There never was. But there you go. One good thing came from it, though. A local guy, when he read about it in the paper, he read the truncheon had snapped because it was made of balsa wood. He turned a truncheon for me, similar to this, but made from ebony. And he came round to the police office one day and he presented me with this ebony, big black truncheon that he turned. And he said, "There you go, Steve. That one won't break on you." And I don't know what happened to it. I haven't got it anymore. It got lost in a move or whatever, but I did carry it, probably illegally. And it was, very substantial, unlike the issued ones. So that's the Chemist. That's story number 4. Got lots more to come, including firearms, sudden death, burglars, people who got away with various crimes. So I hope you will subscribe, and I hope you find it interesting. I'm indoors today because it's not very nice outside, but I intend to carry on with my talks outside in the country. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope the 65 of you that watch my other videos will watch this one too. And if not, as I always say, it'll be good for my great-grandchildren maybe to look back and perhaps understand who I was. Anyway, thanks for watching. God bless. See you next time.